Jurassic Park outside Scotiabank Arena. Did you guys walk around today or anything? It's beautiful.
I walked around.
I
walked around for about an hour today. You know I love it up here. My favorite city in the world.
Other than Chicago.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you usually finish the sentence with that.
Yeah. Well, it's Toronto and Chicago in that particular order. Barcelona, Spain, Munich, Germany, and Leeds, Alabama.
Leeds, Alabama. Every bit as cosmopolitan as all those other places.
That's our 5 biggest places in the world.
73rd NBA Finals, the very first finals outside of Canada. We welcome in the Commissioner, Adam Silver. Good to have you with us as always.
Thank you, Matt. Great to be here.
The sort of symbolism is obvious, right? We've left the country for the first time for the NBA Finals. As a league, what's the significance of crossing over the border here?
The significance is almost precisely your point about the symbolism. We're a league now where 25% of our players were born outside the United States, and while Toronto is not all that far from New York or anywhere else, I think it's symbolic in that way that first finals outside the United States, and also to Charles's point about this city, it's a special place. I'm not going to rank it as a New Yorker, but it's about as multicultural a city and diverse city you can be in, and I think it's about as representative of the league of any city you could think of in North America.
Great host. It is really cosmopolitan and diverse, and great food, and just an interesting place to be. There are tons of eyeballs on this series, have been on the NBA playoffs, but as you know, overall TV ratings were down a little bit this year, and maybe that says more about conventional media than it does about how many folks are actually paying attention. The one thing we hear occasionally about young people in particular is that they aren't necessarily going to sit and watch an entire game. As commissioner, how concerned do you get when TV ratings dip a bit?
There's an ebb and flow. Of course, I watch it closely. I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, as I've said before, part of it was LeBron moving out of the East. It's as straightforward as that 50% of television homes in the U.S. are on the East Coast. And so if you have a big star in the league, the math is, and that those games are on at 10:30 in the East instead of 8 o'clock, ratings are going to be down a bit. I mean, and they were down more on one network than they were on another. So it's something we monitor closely. I think the biggest issue, it isn't just the amount of time a young person will watch the game, but increasingly in the States, young people aren't subscribing to cable. Right. And look, whether it's NBA TV, TNT, or ESPN, you have to get cable. And even to watch those services on an app, you have to first subscribe to cable. So we're sort of at a crossroads here where, and I'm sure over time, our distribution will change so that for those people who want to just watch the NBA and don't want to elect to subscribe to a larger bundle of channels, they'll still be able to watch our games. So I feel great. I mean, the product has never looked better. The game on the floor, the interest has never been greater. We know that from all the social media support, from the amount of coverage of these games. So that'll work out over time.
One of the things you talked about, and me and Ernie have been trying to talk to TNT about for years, and you kind of touched on it, starting the West Coast games earlier. You talked about it. I think it'd be great for the NBA to start a half an hour earlier personally, because that second game doesn't start at 10:45, 10:50. And if I'm on the East Coast, I might watch the first half, but after that I'm done. And you said most of the boxes are on the East Coast. How much are you considering starting the West Coast games earlier?
We are. We're thinking a lot about it. I mean, there's almost two negotiations I have to have. One is with the networks, and the other is with our teams, because I understand that we're a West Coast team, and so now we're playing at 8 and 10:30 in the East. So those 10:30 games, to your point, at 7:30, and I'd actually like to even consider moving a full hour early. But I recognize for those attendees of those games, getting from work through traffic, getting to the arenas might be difficult at 6:30, and also it's not as convenient for their viewers. But there's compromise there. Maybe it's a half hour, but to be balanced out as a national product. Because I know, and I'm home watching you guys, that hour is a big difference. Like if we start at 9:30. Staying up till midnight, I think for most people, all right, that's still kind of late. But 1 in the morning changes it completely. And I think even psychologically, that hour. And by the way, you can track it. To Matt's question about ratings, I mean, we get them minute by minute. And you get to, in the East Coast, like around 11:15, it just starts dropping. 11:30, just stops dropping. Yeah. I mean, that's why, Monday Night Football, plays at 9 o'clock. I mean, they're paying attention to that, a huge viewership for their prime time. I mean, they're just trying to maximize their ratings. So, and it's a compromise because it feels a little bit late in the East, but it's early in the West. So